Welcome back. In May, 2 Connecticut law enforcement officers who died in the line of duty were honored at the National Law Enforcement Memorial in Washington, D.C. One, State Trooper Aaron Pelletier, who was struck by a truck along I-84 in May of last year. The other died 132 years before Pelletier. His name was Officer Charles Hooper of the New Haven Police Department. His name was submitted to the Memorial Committee by retired New Haven Sergeant Anthony Griego, who came upon that name while researching the deaths of other New Haven officers. Take a look.
I was going through microfiche files, and I happened to come across one page, and it was an obituary, death of Officer Hooper. Officer Hooper, I had never heard that name before, so I read the article, and it indicated that he was the first colored officer to be hired by New Haven Police. Well, I jotted all that information down, and I did the rest of my research with the thought of going back and doing further research on Hooper.
And so you took that up, and it is, I mean, first black patrolman, 31 years old. He was investigating a burglary, and it was an incident during that investigation, right?
Well, actually, Hooper and Richard Moore were sent to a burglary call. 2 burglars fled. Hooper chased one down the Farmington Canal Line railroad tracks, and Richard Moore followed the other subject.
And on the railroad tracks is where the injury occurred?
Yes, he was chasing the perpetrator. He tripped on the track, injured his knee. The perpetrator, unfortunately, got away. However, he later was treated for that injury. He got an infection in that leg, and it was eventually taken off, amputated.
And it ended up being the cause of his death, was that injury?
Yes.
Captain Fumiatti, I want to ask you about this because what strikes me is, you know, having interviewed a lot of police officers and having friends who are cops, the fact that he didn't recognize a name of a fallen officer is what triggered it, because that stuff's important in the history of a police department. So to have somebody from 1892 to now be added to the memorial must be a big deal for New Haven.
Yeah, of course it is. We have a number of officers that have been killed in line of duty. Unfortunately, I believe the number's around 23, if I remember correctly, including Officer Hooper. And so those names are though there were a few in the early 2000s, and then there are other names that since the 70s there was a gap there. And so we're lucky that that happened. But also, too, I think looking back at some, it's amazing that, you know, Sergeant Griego's looking through a file or a book and finds something, and then we happen to have the commissioner's notes from back in the 1800s that allow us to confirm a lot of the information.
Well, let's take a look at some of those commissioner's notes. You can see, you guys, if you want to look at the monitors there, we have handwritten entries. The Hooper case was taken up for action. The doctor stated he attended to Hooper. It gives the dates, treated inflammatory rheumatism. It goes through all this. I mean, it's hard to read there, but it talks about all of the treatment that he received, and it says this came from an injury from a fall while chasing a burglar the summer previous. So to have that kind of submission, Sergeant Griego, that's a big deal to be able to pull up these kind of records and submit it.
Exactly. I know it's just a shame that his widow had to go through so much to get a pension.
Because that's what a lot of those police commissioner records were about, was her fight for, I think it was $2 a week or something like that.
They eventually awarded her $2,000 a year, which in 1892, I'm sure. Well, she actually got it in 1894.
And so at least that recognition did happen. Why was it so important for you to get to this final step and get that recognition in Washington?
Well, as a former police officer, here's a brother officer who was never recognized for the duty that he performed, and as a result of that, it caused his death.
And it's important.
It was just a sad case.
Yeah, and what about we have a picture here of his grave marker. Captain Fumiatti, what about the fact that not only was this a death from 1892, but to have it be the first black patrolman in New Haven, there has to be some pretty big significance to that too.
Yeah, absolutely. For the time period, there's a lot of contextual things going on in the country at that time. When you look at where Officer Hooper was born, in Delaware, I believe it was.
Yes.
And so in 1861, he's born in Delaware, and so obviously there's a number of things going on in this country at that time. For him to come to New Haven, to be he was originally a supernumerary and then became a police officer. Just for that time period, it's incredible. Also for us to not even know about it is also fascinating that we have history there, that there's so much history in New Haven that it's like almost every rock you turn over, every stone you look at, there's some new information there. And so it's really incredible to have that documented. And then the story around finding the gravestone is also incredible, where Sergeant Griego, I think a couple of years ago, contacted Federalsburg, Maryland, the police department there. They went to look at the main cemetery, did not find the stone there, and someone else had mentioned, hey, there's another cemetery for African Americans that's separate, and so that's where Officer Hooper's gravestone was located. That's where that photo's from.
And that speaks to how remarkable his service was in that time, and also that, you know, and we talk about this, and we've unfortunately done stories on Connecticut people ending up on the memorial in the past, and it's so important to remember, you know, Aaron Pelletier, a traffic stop. What's more basic for a state trooper than doing a traffic stop on the highway? And yet here he was chasing some burglars on a train track and ended up suffering a fatal injury. Is there an important message in that as well?
Absolutely. I mean, it's important to realize that his performance for the city of New Haven was important, and he should have been recognized a long, long time ago.
But does it make you feel good that he's been recognized now?
Absolutely. It was such a thrill, because especially when two friends of mine actually discovered where he was buried. For the longest time, this story had that blank spot. We weren't sure where he was.
And to have that and to locate him in that cemetery, a big deal. Captain Fumiatti, I'm just going to finish with this. What does this overall just mean to the New Haven Police Department to have this addition to the memorial?
It's almost impossible to put into words. The dedication of Sergeant Griego he's our de facto historian in the department for a long time, and so there's a lot of things in that department that he's done a great job of keeping memories alive, memorializing individuals and officers who have died in line of duty is incredibly important to us. And so finding someone like this that we didn't even know about at all and then bringing it to light hundreds of years later is absolutely incredible.